Welcome to episode 5
Mhm.
of the Yalla podcast. My name is Alon,
I'm Eli.
and today we have joining us from New York. Let me see if I can pronounce your name accurately. Khader Humied.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
So
So
thank
I'm
you
so
for being-
glad to have met you guys. And it's a dream come true for me. May I speak about that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, because
very much
I mean,
welcome.
I've been living in New York for the last 35 years. And as a Palestinian, I carry the national tragedy in my DNA, in my psyche. Same time, I wanted to live in the West and experience freedom, liberation, music, and culture. And I've been here for 35 years. And I try to leave the past behind. And then this crisis happened. I don't even want to give it a name, but the crisis as we talk about it. And I'm like, and I told myself, why are the Israelis allowing this to happen? And I was saying to my friend of mine, there must be some really interesting, cool Israelis who think like me, who would want to question what's happening, why it's happening, and what can we do to live in the world where this is not normal. Because there's nothing normal about what's happening.
Yes.
So I dreamt of, at the beginning of this crisis, of finding Israelis who think differently. And as a fact, I emailed few of them that I've known from social things, and they never replied to my email because I was just asking them how are they doing. They never even answered.
Uh-huh.
So then I don't know how I found your YouTube channel, and I found the first 2 interviews you guys had, and said these guys are exactly fit the description. So you were exactly what I projected that could exist in Israeli society. And I'm glad we're having this conversation.
This is really flattering. Being like what you wanted people to be. You say that we were, and this is very, very flattering. And thank you. And I think it is completely mutual because
Yes,
we have
that's
been
what I
looking
wanted to
actively
say.
for Palestinian people who share our dreams, who share our beliefs. And then when you sent us the message, we answered you because we saw that you were, one of us, one of the people who are on our side truly. And
Thank you.
yeah, this is why it was important for us to speak to you.
Yes.
I spoke to Alec before this interview unofficially,
Mhm.
and we asked the question, and I think we want to maybe repeat this question,
Yes.
which is how come you guys and myself as well were able to come from societies where repression, anger, rage, counter accusation, violence is the norm. And we arrived to receiving that, you know what? There must be other ways of being.
Yes.
3 of us on our own, and I know who influenced who in your equation, but on my own, I've been questioning a way out of this madness. And I've been doing my own thinking, my own therapy, my own reading on how can we get out of here. And I can talk about it in a minute, but it'll be interesting to see how did you guys arrive to escape the circumstances of your cultural settings?
Yeah.
Or,
So I suggest that we answer this question during the conversation.
okay.
But maybe let's start from your life story, where you were
Sure.
born, and
Yeah.
what you are doing currently.
Sure. Okay.
And then,
So
and then we can also hear how you got, it can come, you can answer the question for
Yes, it can come
yourself,
full circle
and then
Sure.
we can answer it for
us.
no,
Yes.
I'm glad we added that on the agenda as an item.
Yes.
yes.
So this is my story. I was born in 1970 in the West Bank.
Mhm.
And even explaining where I was born, like I just renewed my American passport
Mhm.
and I was challenging the system. So I wrote Nablus, Palestine. And the passport came back Nablus, West Bank,
Mhm.
because the United States does not accept the existence of Palestine.
Yes.
So saying was born in the West Bank is so nondescript, is like it's it's no place. It's just like trying to not define me by my cultural heritage, and it's just covering that up.
Yeah,
So
the place that you come from does not exist on the map.
Exactly. So I don't.
But
so
even this is politically charged, right? Because they don't
it is already politically
occupy
charged.
territories, for example.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
I was
They
born
could.
in 1970,
could.
and yes, of course, we could debate this for hours.
Yes.
But let's not go there. And
Yes.
so I was born in 1970, and probably by the age of 6, I started noticing that we are under occupation.
Yes.
Because you see Israeli army tanks, jeeps, checkpoints, and obviously, as a kid, I noticed these people are different than us. They don't speak the same language. They seem to be, they're always armed, and they're always enforcing rules and regulations of occupation. So you feel it from early on in life that you are a subject to, for me, a foreign state. Somebody is out there ruling your household. And then I started school, and I realized, oh my God, even my textbooks in school, from first grade to the last year of high school, I don't know if you guys know this, the curriculum in the West Bank comes from back when Jordan ruled the West Bank between 1948 and 67. So they left us their curriculum, which is really dated, in Arabic from Jordan, that comes from Jordan, but the Israelis, I think, removed the front 2 pages because they have the Jordanian flag and the picture of the king. So we only get a textbook that's missing the front pages from the country Jordan next door, because we didn't have a Department of Education running the Palestinian. So we had a Jordanian education system.
So it's leftover of Jordanian occupation?
Yes.
So what characterizes this education system?
So the education was very rigorous in terms of being British originally, but also it's left over from a British occupation.
Yeah.
So I have 2 occupations already on top of the Israeli occupation that's forming my identity. And in this textbook material, there is no mention of geography or history. So you are taught how to read and write, you're taught math, you're taught literature, but you don't ever read.
Well, at least you are taught that. At least you are taught that. That's something.
Exactly. Yeah. So they were good. We had very good chemistry, biology, math.
Okay.
Subjects.
That's not bad, because that's like, if you want to ask me about the Israeli education system, it does not have these things.
No, you don't? It doesn't?
No, it does. It's just bad. But
it's really bad. It's in my opinion, maybe my standards are too high. That's what they tell me. But people tell you that your standards are too high when they don't want to meet standards. So
I agree with you. I was a teacher myself. I can relate.
And also, I still am a teacher of math, and I know the Israeli education system is in shambles.
Yeah, but I'm not sure. I feel like all the system of education, we also talked about it before, Khader, when we talked how the education system, teaches people not to think and not to really understand. We can get to it later in the conversation.
Maybe we will speak about education.
So anyway, so my education, my education never taught a single thing about history.
Yes.
Except up to 1920s. The history ended in 1920s, and so I don't know.
May I ask, how does let's say a boy of I don't know 8, 10, 15 years old think about the occupation? You experience the occupation firsthand, but you don't understand the context. So how do you see
it? There is an actual weight to occupation.
Yes.
In the culture, you feel it. Like, for example, books. As an occupied person, we only had one newspaper coming from Jerusalem, and it was controlled. So I was a big reader since early on. So there was only one newspaper in the whole society, comes from Jerusalem, censored by the occupation. And so a big event would happen around us, and then we get the coverage of it. And I'm like, oh my God, it does not look at all like what happened.
So you learn to mistrust the system.
You learn to mistrust, but actually you learn to also be a critical thinker.
Yes.
Because we also had one Israeli TV station and one Jordanian TV station. So the Israeli TV station had 2 hours of Arabic between, I think, 6 and 8, where
Yes.
they broadcasted. You guys grew up during that time when there was
Yes,
the
I
broadcast?
remember.
Yes,
I
I
remember.
remember. When I was a child, I remember that my grandma used to watch it like every Friday afternoon. There were Arabic shows, and she knew Arabic. She came from Syria.
And I
Interesting.
remember also that the Jordanian channels
Yeah,
also
Jordanian
we
channel.
could
And Egyptian channel, maybe
yeah,
when there was cable TV.
yeah, when there was cable TV, we could see Jordanian.
But I didn't know Arabic, so I didn't watch it.
Yeah.
So I grew up before cable TV, and there was only 2 stations. One is for Jordan, one from Israel.
Yes.
And I knew as a child that, again, each news agency has its own agenda. So you almost automatically develop critical thinking because you don't trust anybody. You have to think for yourself. Yes. So even at the age of 8, I already knew that the media that I'm watching and the things that come through my awareness is already controlled by political agents. So you feel that even as a child, you already feel, and also
even
my
if
relatives,
like, your parents don't explain to you what's going on, you get it by seeing what's going on. That's what you think?
Yes. And most parents don't want to tell you. It's too embarrassing and it's too shameful.
Yes.
And how did
my
your
father
parents,
to sit me down.
How did your parents treat this subject?
The way they treat subject, they complain about how the occupation presents itself.
Yes.
So, for example, half of my family lives in Jordan, and we can't see them. So when my grandfather died at the age of 6, my uncles were not allowed to come bury him.
Wow.
Because they didn't have the permit to visit the West Bank, even though they were born in the West Bank. The Israeli army controlled the border, and they decided who comes and who goes. So I remember that as a child, there was this anger and sadness and disappointment.
It's just heartbreaking.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's just like every day at the age of 8 or 10, to visit my uncles in Jordan, we would have to cross the boundary from the West Bank into Jordan. And there is many Israeli checkpoints that control the border. So I remember going with my father and my mother, and the trip that should take 1 hour from Nablus in the West Bank to Amman, Jordan, takes 8 hours because the army makes sure it's difficult, it's challenging, it's expensive. You have to pay a fee, you have to get you have to get a permit, and then you go to this checkpoint one after another. And the last checkpoint before you leave to Jordan, you go to the searching station where they open your bags. Even though under occupation, everything is restricted. What you eat, what you read, what you drink is completely controlled by the Israeli army. Still, they were worried that we're taking something from the West Bank to Jordan, so we have to be inspected, maybe messages to some terrorist organization. So we had to be searched. So I remember at the age of maybe 8 or 9, leaving the West Bank and going with my father to a room with an army soldier, where the army soldier would make us take all our clothes off, take our pants off, and search every article of your clothing. So there is this daily humiliation that the army inflicts on the grown-ups, the children, everybody, to tell you who's boss and who's in charge and how you should behave yourself under occupation. So you learn this as a young person. You learn this by the time you're 8, you're 9, you're already schooled on the mentality, energy, and attitude of how you feel about yourself as an occupied person.
Can I say something about it? Because it's something I understood that it's really, really important for me to say if there are like Israeli listeners to this, okay? Because they always tell us, like, they educate their children to hate us, and you're telling something different. You say your parents try to protect you. They try that you don't know about it, but you as a child, you cannot ignore it because it's so present everywhere.
Everywhere.
You don't, even if your parents try to hide it from you, you cannot
avoid it.
You cannot avoid because it's your life.
Yes.
So.
Yes. And we talk a lot about how Israelis repress the occupation and how they work very, very hard to ignore the occupation, many of them. And I think it is part of privilege in this supremacist system that the Israelis can ignore the occupation while the Palestinians cannot help but feeling its oppressive, meaning in their daily lives.
That's a very good point, because sometimes when I speak to my American Jewish friends about the situation, they are also, I think, a little bit ashamed of it. They don't want to say, yes, we are a supremacist culture. We control and we rule and we subjugate these people. They're our slaves. We tell them what to do.
So I am deeply ashamed of it. I am deeply ashamed of it.
But that's the irony, the person that feel and aware feel more shame, and the people who deny feel like okay
I
with
think
themselves.
They also feel the shame, but they try to repress it.
I think some way, somehow, sometimes it's phrased that it's part of the strange historic confusion. That some way, somehow, Israel, against its own will, got stuck with this occupation thing.
Yes.
Like, you guys had no choice but to occupy the West Bank. You had no choice but to subjugate us because it's nasty circumstances of history.
Yes.
And that you have no will. Like, you are also a victim of the occupation, that you were forced to do this dirty job.
Yeah.
So there is a nuanced way to express this position, that the Zionists are also victims of this supremacist system, and we express it in our podcast, but this is not the way that most Zionists would express it. They would just say, yes, we're victims.
They say that we're double victims, because
yes,
the Palestinians also attacking us, but they also make us kill them and make us look like the bad guys.
Like the quote,
yes,
right?
Yes. I'm very aware of that narrative.
Yeah.
Yes.
But and so I'm going to continue with my little teeny biography, and it's kind of so between 8 and 14, life in the West Bank under occupation was difficult, challenging, restricted, but at the same time manageable. The occupation was manageable. Till it got to a point where, I think, after the war in Lebanon, which I also remember watching on TV as a child. And
so let us tell the audience when this war was, 1982?
82, yeah. I think Israel was having problems with the PLO being in Lebanon and being an adjacent force that Israel felt was a threat. So Israel tries to invade Lebanon and invades Lebanon for a while and gets as close as to being in Beirut itself. And during that time, Sabra and Shatila massacre happened.
Sabra and Shatila.
And that's the first massacre I've experienced as a child.
Wow.
And that's
Let me
almost...
just say for the audience, if you want to know about this war, about Sabra and Shatila specifically, I really recommend the movie Waltz with Bashir. This is by an Israeli director, but it really...
it illustrates really what happens and how it looked like.
Yes, from an Israeli angle, but I think an honest Israeli angle.
Absolutely.
And a shocking one.
Yeah,
I watched that documentary myself, but also I remember that the images.
It's not a documentary. It's
it's a
film, but it is based on
an animation. I remember it was an animated film.
Yes, animated film. Yes.
But when the war happened in Lebanon, I was just so, like, I still have the images in my head of dead bodies being blown. You know how after a body is killed and not buried, it just starts to blow up. And I remember just seeing images and images of people like in the street, and I was just so could not sleep for nights.
Like, now people are traumatized all over the world, but from what happens in Gaza, people are traumatized, really traumatized, I think, from seeing it every day on the screens.
For almost 7 months now.
Yeah.
So after 82, the Palestinian society starts to feel like, and especially in 86, I think 87 when the First Intifada started.
Yes.
And I was 17 then.
Yes.
And by then, the occupation starts to really manifest into, I was in school, my classmates were disappearing because they went to jail. Some people I've known were arms were broken by the army because it was a policy, if you were caught throwing stones at soldiers. I forgot which prime minister was. I say break their arms, and there was a policy to break young people's arms. And
Rabin said
was it Rabin? Yes, Rabin.
Yeah, Rabin. Yeah, and then he won a Nobel Prize.
After,
Yes.
And then also the army detention of Palestinian young, basically children, like people under the age of 16 would disappear for 6 months at a time without a court hearing, without a lawyer, without right to defend yourself. You just disappear for 6 months of military detention.
And this is also something I wanted to say when we talk about the hostages, which, you know, what Hamas did, it was horrible that they took hostages, but I think like Palestinians are experiencing it for ages now.
Generations.
Yeah, for just people kidnapping children. Like that's what it is, right?
Yes.
It's like you just...
it almost happened. It happened to me too. I was once at my brother's store helping him. I was sweeping or whatever. I was only 14. And the army jeep passes by, and 4 undercover Israeli soldiers who never showed me their ID or tell me they were army, jumped on me, carried me, and threw me in the back of the jeep. And I was like under their boots.
Wow.
I was only 14. I was so scared. And they took me to the local jail.
I would be scared shitless.
And I'm like, first of all, I thought they were settlers. And during that time, settlers would...
Were they in uniform?
No, they were not in uniform. They were undercover.
Really? They weren't in uniform?
Yes, they were. I mean, I knew it was some kind of military jeep, but there was no uniform. There was undercover guys. Threw me in the jeep, took me to the local jail. And I'm like, what the heck? What did I do wrong? Like, I'm walking in the street, sweeping my brother's shop. And so I was abducted. I arrived to the jail. The guy in one of the towers of the jail looked at me and he said, no, it's not him.
Oh, shit.
So they released me. I was never as terrified in my life as that moment. But this is basically what we were thought of. We're all suspects.
Did you tell your parents about it when it happened?
I told my parents after.
And what did they say?
I mean, ashamed, afraid, sad, worried for me, feeling like they cannot protect me in the society.
But political as well?
What do you mean political?
Like, were they political about it? Did they say this is oppression, this is occupation?
Oh, no, I mean, everybody in the West Bank knows the deal, knows that we are under occupation, we have no rights, you could be taken, thrown to jail for no reason. And that was, I mean, and I'm a very lucky Palestinian. I have not suffered what the average Palestinian born in a refugee camp amount of, Nablus, where I grew up, is much more, it's an old city, it's been around for 2,000 years. My family did not have to leave their homes and become refugees. So I'm much more fortunate than the average Palestinian in terms of the experiences I've had under occupation. And then the Intifada started, and that's like a whole level of, I was tear gassed once or twice.
Wow.
The army after...
What, during protests?
Once I was sitting with my sister at home watching TV. And I don't know why an army soldier threw a tear gas canister into our backyard. And we're watching TV and we start smelling some smoke. And we didn't know what it is. We didn't know what it was because we were just home watching TV.
You just get itchy in the throat or something.
Oh my God, we got very sick and we were crying and whatever, wash our faces, and we discovered that canister in our backyard.
Just because they felt like it.
I
have no idea why.
It's really, you know, when I have this conversation with you, I always think like things that I want Israelis to understand, you know, that, for example, that the victims are occupations. When you are holding occupation, they're gonna be like this. The occupation is against everybody, and the victims of it are like children, who just watch TV, who just walk, you know, it's always like this, like, and it's always violence collective, that is inflicted collectively on everyone.
Yes, it is. And what's worse was the last year of high school, the army decided to close all the universities and all the schools in the West Bank. So I was in high school. I took my first semester of high school. And in the West Bank, your high school grades dictate the rest of your life.
Yes.
If you do well in your high school, you could become a doctor or an engineer. If you do bad in high school, forget it. No college will ever accept you.
Yes.
So the first semester under Intifada, I got the lowest scores I've ever had in my life. It was like around a C average. And I think of myself as a good student. So I have a C average in my high school. Then we usually take
because you were so distracted by everything that was happening.
And 2 semesters, you could get from C to B if you did very well in the second semester. So the first semester I did badly, and there was no second semester.
Wow.
So I left. So when I turned 18, my father and my family realized under the Intifada, this kid is in the worst place in the world to grow up. There's no schools open, no colleges, no universities. Let's send him to Jordan for his safety. So I left the West Bank to Jordan to escape the Intifada, to escape being at that age group where, I mean, between 18
to
and...
be with the other side of the family?
Yeah.
Okay. So where is this in Jordan?
Amman, Jordan.
Okay.
It's the capital. And it's kind of interesting also, when you leave the West Bank and you arrive to Jordan, you can breathe. It just feels so different crossing the boundary when there is no tanks, no soldiers, no machine guns, and living in a normal society where you're not always a suspect.
Yes.
Being a Palestinian in the West Bank, you're always a suspect.
Yeah.
Any interaction, every transition,
somebody
is watching you.
Wow.
So that's what I grew up with. And
I want to say that when I leave Israel for a vacation, I also get a burden off my chest, like the burden of feeling different, the burden of having the cult surrounding me and all the different threats that the cult poses, and the like energy of brainwashing that the cult induces. So this is a burden off, and also the threat of violence. Like it's dangerous here. It's always dangerous here. So I know that I have a burden off when I'm not in Israel. And when you say this, I'm like, oh, this thing multiplied by like 1,000, and then you get this, and it's like, oh fuck, I cannot even imagine, you know?
But this was interesting that we can share the same experience from the two sides of the fence.
Yes.
But we can relate to each other.
Yes.
And understand each other's experiences more than most people can imagine.
Yes.
Like, I mean, you had a guest in your program 3 days ago who served in the army for a short time. I forgot his name.
Dan.
Yes.
And he was talking about how abusive it was for him to be in the army and how abusive it is to be the occupier.
Yes.
So we've never had the chance to have this conversation from both ends and being frank and honest about our emotional experiences.
Yes.
And
Alec and I were talking about it, that we see this podcast as like an opportunity to present like many different angles of this thing that is happening, the occupation and the colonialist project and the geopolitical situation, and from all different angles. And we think that when people see many different angles of this story, they can really understand what is going on, and the understanding what is going on is the first step in the way to maybe making it better.
Yes. And
thank you.
Yeah, and I think also I thought about it that I also talked about it with another like new Palestinian friend that I have, that Israel doesn't feel the same way that it was for me, because like a lot of the existence here is based on this denial of the occupation, of the erasure of Palestine that happened here and is still going on. And the moment you start being aware to it, like all the safety that the privileged Jewish sides have, it feels like not real.
Yes.
Feels
it's temporary, and
it's
an
temporary.
illusion.
It's an illusion. It's like you put and I understand now also the bigger picture of like having this structure in the Middle East when so many people around hate you for what you do, and you build all your survival on the power of the empire that can at some point, you know,
just take it away,
and then, you know, if we don't make real connection, human connection with the people of the area, how are we going to survive here? You know, it feels so unsafe.
Yes.
Yeah.
So unsustainable.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting you mentioned sustainability, because for a while I became an environmental architect. So I'm really interested in the environment and sustainability. I mean, there's nothing more unsustainable than war.
Yeah.
To destroy the land, the buildings, the fields, the animals. I mean, it's such the worst what human beings can do to each other.
Yes.
And I mean, I was talking to Alec earlier about humanism in this juncture of the 21st century.
I don't have a problem with this term.
You say what you want to say, and then I will say that I have a problem with the term.
My question is, are we going to enter the 21st century divided by ethnic, religious lines?
Yes.
I mean, first of all, and racism. Do we believe that racially you and I are inferior, superior, better, worse? There is something bad in me, or there's something really bad in the way you guys are made. There's something in your DNA. Let's clear this out. Do we agree that we are all human beings, are equal, and have the same desires, needs, wants?
Yes.
Do we agree on this?
We agree.
Yes, of course. So
because
this is the good side. This is the good side of humanism for me. But I also think that there is a dark side to humanism. But continue.
No, I mean, maybe we need to redefine what I mean by humanism, because this is actually sometimes even the terms are confusing. So I mean, the humanism I'm saying, if we want to survive the coming 100 years, and I sometimes doubt if humanity can.
Yes.
Are we going to be some warring countries that try to destroy each other based on religion? And that could be Saudi Arabia versus Iran as well. I mean, I'm not just talking about Arab-Israeli conflict.
Yes,
I think the whole idea that
enemies. All countries are potential enemies to each other in some sense.
Exactly. And I don't like that picture, because I feel like when I came to New York in 1990, and I went to college with students from Asia, from Latin America. Actually, I had Israeli classmates. I had people from Jamaica. I had people from all around the world. And we were studying the same subject. And none of us ever thought that one of the students is a lesser human being or sees things weirdly and differently. We were all designing dwellings for human beings, and they seem to be all the same style, the same type. Which is so I came to believe that human beings can coexist and can maintain private cultures and languages and religions in their own free time, but collectively under an equal law and under fair circumstances can thrive and can actually enrich each other's lives. It helps me to understand your humor. It helps me to understand your approach to teaching, whatever, and I can probably share with you what I know, and we all benefit. But if we're enemies and we live in isolation and separation, I think we lose more. So this is the kind of humanism that I believe in. So tell me about you.
I do believe in this humanism completely. I also have a problem with the dark side of humanism, which is this is restrictive, because just factually, humans are one kind of animal, and we are not special in any objective sense. All animals are special in their own way, and all animals are also equal in the sense that they all have the same rights: the right to life, and the right to prosperity, and the right to love, and the right to freedom, and so forth and so on. And I think sometimes people use humanism in a way that excludes other animals and that treats humans as above
Oh, yes.
animals.
I
So
agree with you,
the
but
dark side of humanism that I think there is a problem in like leftist people who are not vegan, okay? And why? I think this is because they are humanists. They put humans above everyone else, and they say, first, let's take care of humans, and then we'll think about animals. So then they excuse not being vegan. And I think that this is a problem.
By the way, I'm vegan too, which is one thing we all have in common. As a matter of fact, I think the survival of the planet cannot be human-centered because we are part of the ecosystem.
Yeah.
And the tree outside is as alive as I am, and I want to respect it as much. I need some respect. I mean, I'm not saying human beings have the ability to exploit. We have the ability to want more. And I feel like we have the responsibility to regulate that ability and to pay attention to the ocean, to the plants, to the birds, because as a fact, it's not selfish. Actually, it's selfish. I mean, it's unhealthy to be only human-centric because if the tree does not survive, I don't survive. It's short-sighted to think that way.
Yeah, and we need to think about the survival of the whole ecosystem that we're part of.
Thank you.
And so, like it is damaging to, like Zionism. Zionism is thinking about the Jews first, right? And then, then it creates a sickness. It creates problems. And just in the same way, thinking that humans are the most important, it also creates problem because it separates.
I agree with you.
Yeah,
but since we're dealing, I mean, this is a whole discussion about.
Yes, I just wanted to mention
veganism.
I have like a pet peeve with this term, veganism.
No, but as a matter of fact, I respect how much you bring it up every time, and I think it's important. It's kind of part of the human dark side too.
Yes.
Like when you choose to look, like I have a lot of friends who have pet animals, dogs and cats, and they love them. They're willing to spend $7,000 on a medical procedure for the dog, but then they have a steak for dinner.
Yes.
It's really even worse having a baby lamb for dinner when we love baby creatures, but some way, somehow, baby sheep is to be excluded. I mean, there is definitely a dark side to that, and that's a whole different conversation. But currently, and I want to acknowledge, like, I mean, just today as we are having this meeting, the Israeli army is attacking Rafah.
Yes.
And imagine that for the last 6 months, the entire population of Gaza is made refugees.
Yes.
Without hospitals, without sewage system, without water, without restaurant. And now all of them are living in one last refugee camp in Rafah. And I don't want to upset anybody because I feel like part of our collective grief is we have to acknowledge how tragic and painful for everybody is involved to try to kill what's remained from Gaza and punish the people who've been punished beyond belief, and that we try to have a normal day. We try to pretend that I want to have breakfast, lunch, and dinner, or pretend I'm going to work while people are being slaughtered for no reason. And we are allowing by being complicit.
Yes.
And by accepting governments and political systems around the world to just look the other way. And that really terrifies me. That really terrifies me that if we can allow a pass on this one, first, it's so tragic for the people who are experiencing it, but second, it's tragic for all of us of what kind of future we are creating. So I'm really, I mean, it's hard sometimes to even breathe.
Sometimes I'm thinking like maybe these masters of the world want to see if they can create this world order that you can commit genocide at some population, and the Palestinians are just kind of there they're testing it on them.
Yes, they also test the weapons. This is what makes
and they see if they can go by with it. Because if they can, so they're kind of, they won, you know, it's like kind of...
now it's a possibility. Now you need to be scared of it. Everyone needs to be scared.
And we need to show them that it's not a possibility.
Yes.
And
yes, we need to come together. We need to come together. This is very important.
But yeah.
I mean, this is why I'm kind of feeling our conversation as Israelis and Palestinians who don't accept the facts on the ground, don't accept that this is the best way of dealing with reality, is in a way to stop, even though if we're over-ambitious and we think we're going to stop the world from self-destroying, I'd rather die trying and to say, I've done my best. I reached out to the people I respect, and we have an honest conversation. We're trying to create an opening to see that there could be a future where militarism and enemies and occupation and colonialism is not the way.
So we will want to devote the last section of the conversation to thinking about such a future, about like bringing optimism to the discussion.
Thank you. Do you want me to start or you want to start?
I think maybe let's go back to your story and finish your story, and then we will get to the future.
Yeah, because
back to the future.
Yeah, because I want to also to hear about your how you because you told us in the beginning that you kind of try to be an American and leave Palestine behind, and then it came back to you. I want to hear about
about the process, the psychological process, the spiritual process.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. So when I came to New York and I met a lot of people from around the world, I realized that the veneer of identity, it's okay, but it's not who I am. That I am much more than just my ethnic origin and the culture of my religion or the language I speak. I mean, these things are the elements on who I am. And I was able to make friends from all around the world and connect to them human to human with equality, with respect, with growth. And they see me and I saw them, and I never felt that there need to be a cultural divide between people. So that started me into opening up. And of course, I'm in New York, and New York City is an extremely Jewish city. So I had bosses who were Jewish. I have colleagues who were Jewish. I have classmates who were Jewish. I have excellent teachers who were Jewish. And I was like, oh my God, in Arabic, we describe the Jews as the people of the book.
Yes, also in Hebrew. I'm a sefer.
Yeah, so we have this respect for Jewish intellectuals. I mean, I read Noam Chomsky early on, and other Jewish intellectuals, especially the ones who were for Palestine. I'm like, wow, Jewish people are so open-minded and can see the complexity of this reality.
Can I ask you, what has been your experience with the Jewish people that you met, like personally? Like probably you had different experiences, but can you give a few examples?
There is different examples. I sometimes meet Jewish people who are trained by upbringing and by schooling to be told that I don't exist. So I remember meeting a Jewish person, and I said, I'm from Nabulus, from the West Bank. And he said, what's Nabulus? He said, oh, this is the city where I grew up. He said, I thought you guys are all nomads. So I told him, listen, my city is 4,000 years old. It was built during the Bronze Age, and it has continuous settlement for 4,000 years. Wow. Why would the center of the old world be just empty? Like suddenly Jerusalem and the center of the old world between Damascus and Egypt, between Saudi Arabia and Jordan, we said, nobody lives there. Just we all took off.
Complete ignorance.
It's empty. So I'm sometimes like, people tell me to my face that I don't exist.
Yeah.
And I have to say, listen, I don't make this up. Yeah. I mean, my city is made out of stone.
No, you're lying.
Greek, Roman, Byzantine, Turkish ruins.
But really, this is the Zionist disease in a nutshell, right?
Yeah.
they choose willful ignorance, okay? And then this willful ignorance leads to denial of reality. Like it can be as extreme as this, telling a person that they do not exist, a person that they are seeing in front of their eyes, and then it transforms into like you are lying and like accusations, and this is the mental illness. This is in a nutshell.
And in fact, I even have the other problem, and you guys have interviewed that guest who's a Christian Zionist.
Yes. Yeah. He was born a Christian Zionist.
Yeah.
That was interesting.
No, he escaped this culture.
No, of course. But I also meet Christians who also bought the Israeli narrative.
Yes.
And doubt. And I have a Christian friend who asked me, did you guys really have a society before 1948? I swear, this is a very good friend. And I'm like, I don't know. I was not born there, but I've seen pictures and movies and videos and places that seem to have existed.
Yeah, so you know, there's something I want to say about it, because it's something that I hear so often, that Palestine didn't exist because there was no a political independent state called Palestine. But Palestine existed, like there was cities,
there was a society.
Yeah, this is when I say when a place exists, it's not like the official title.
Yeah, this is liberal thinking.
Yeah,
right.
Because the colonial powers didn't recognize it before, it didn't exist, and they continue not to recognize it, so it still doesn't exist, and then we can say like it's never existed.
And this is what we say, that Palestine does not exist, that the Palestinian people do not exist, and they say it to me all the time. That
and I also want to say it always go to history, to present, to future. It didn't exist, it does not exist now,
and it will never exist.
Yes. I hear that too. And also, I mean, Edward Said used to say, whenever someone asks them a question about Palestine, we have to go to zero, because the well has been poisoned with so much misinformation that I have to define all my terms and tell you, and I have to become a historian. I'm like, I can just be a normal human being living my life, and I have to go dig up. So now I'm listening. And luckily, Israeli historians like Ilan Pepe and others have explained with crazy details the early creation myth and the whole Nakba and all of that. So I have these Israelis who Jewish friends who bought the narrative. And I have a lot of other Jewish friends who are progressive, open-minded, left-leaning Democrats, but some way, somehow, they believe in the exceptionalism of the Jewish state. That some way, somehow, because of the suffering that Jews have suffered in Europe, and because of the suffering of history, we have to make an exception. That Israel is allowed to have an occupation army.
Give us just one crime. Just one crime, okay? Just one.
Just one, yes, exactly.
Okay, just one.
Yes.
And you know, it's funny that a liberal in America believes in it. It's like, yeah, they deserve a special treatment. Let other people that are not me pay the price. Like if they would pay the price, they say, okay, these people lost this, so I give them something. But they ask somebody else to pay this price.
But listen, this is the liberals in the US. They have to believe this, right? Because they need the one crime. All of them need the one crime of the Native Americans, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So it's kind of the infrastructure for this kind of thinking is already there.
In the last 6 months, I joined some of left-leaning groups that are protesting. I live in the most Zionist county in New York State.
Really?
And we have a group of activists that protest the genocide weekly, every Sunday for 2 hours. And these groups are, I mean, I had mixed, at the beginning of this thing, I was like in despair by myself. And now I joined this group, and at least I have allies. And my group is mixed between atheists, Christians, and progressive Jews. I have a lot of Jewish friends who don't stand for this. And that gives me so much hope that we can have diversity of of understanding, and the progressive group and the open-minded group can grow larger and can change the narrative. But the conversation about settler colonialism, you know, that language of settler colonialism was not even available to me 8 months ago, because it's been developing in the last 20 years on the left. And we almost forgot to think that America is a settler colonial project, supporting a settler colonial
Australia, Canada, many countries in Africa, in Asia.
But Americans don't see themselves
they don't.
as an imperial settler colonial project.
No.
So it requires coming to terms with yourself, psychologically, and there's an honest, and I mean, in a way, these questions we're asking requires extreme honesty and strength of moral character for the person who's asking the questions. If my existence is dependent on some shallow ideology that keeps me propped in place, and you're going to come take it away from me, I will be nothing. So I kind of, one of my transformation in the last 20 years, I started doing yoga and meditating and reading psychological and spiritual books. And I started to read about philosophy and develop an independent identity outside dogma and outside ideology. And that's hard work. Most people feel safer clicking to the group and its ideology than doing your own thinking, because that means you have to disarm yourself and ask yourself, who are you outside this conditioning? And so, it seems that when I hear you guys speak, you seem to both have done it, like break loose from dogma.
Yeah, I know. I've invested thousands of hours into being interested in all kinds of philosophies and practices and literature and art and and Elik is a musician. This is
I think I had a process that I can say that is called I would say like kind of individuation. Like I kind of pulled myself out. I did a lot of like consciousness research myself and through art, but I really disconnected myself from like political issues. And I needed to do it to set myself free from the society, but then I had to take it an extra step. Like I understood, like I think I wouldn't be able to speak out against Zionism like this if I wouldn't do this also and the consciousness research and all this stuff. But many people that I know in Israel, I feel getting stuck in this individualistic mindset stage, and they don't
the empty spirituality.
They don't go to the next level that you understand, okay, I separated myself in order to reconnect, and to and reconnecting is like what we're doing now. I'm talking talking to you, talking with Alon, trying to figure it out together,
Yes.
Add to it also I'm troubled with religions. I have like mixed feelings about religions. I grew up from a very religious family, and religion was stuffed down my throat with this like almost dogmatic, right and wrong. These are the rules, do the rules.
This is what religion usually is, right?
And then, so I rejected all of that.
Yes.
And then I started exploring Eastern traditions. And I realized, oh my God, we human beings, I believe human beings are spiritual creatures in general. If you study anthropology, you can't find a tribe in the middle of the Amazon River that does not have a creation myth, an afterlife, a mythology of dreams. It seems that we're wired for some kind of transcendence experience.
Yes,
and religion can help us facilitate that experience by feeling united, having ceremonies, having rituals, having interpretations of what happens after we die. I think these questions are important. the unfortunate thing that religion is a very powerful tool. And if you declare yourself the priesthood, then you're a person of power, then you can have followers, then you can tell them what they want to hear, then you can control them, you can rule them. And but at the same time, I mean, for a while, I thought maybe we can have a future where religions just don't exist. Because I thought that would solve the problem. But I seem to feel like right now, maybe we have to liberate religions themselves from the dominance control. Because I know some religious faithful people who are actually kind, nice, and do-gooders without being in your face, without being nasty, without forcing you to convert. So it is possible.
And it's also, I see, like, every time I talk to a religious person to details, I see very different interpretations. And I think people, it gives them good feeling to know that they're doing something that their ancestors did, but actually they give this the interpretation that give the meaning they want to give it. And
that's a very dangerous trap that religious people fall into. But at the same time, like, for example, I mean, I read Carl Jung, the psychologist. And I think there is a lot of mythology that's almost internal and can help us transform and free ourselves. So, for example, I'm not Christian, but there is something about Messiah and the Savior. It's like a hero myth. And
Jesus was not so different from the Buddha. He delivered similar messages.
Absolutely. And these messages require personal responsibility, liberation, and self-examination, deep, difficult self-examination. And it surprises me how a lot of people who I know are supposedly religious act as if they know everything. And they don't want to ask questions. But if you read the Bible and the Old Testament, the prophets are fighting with God all the time.
Jeremiah was a rebel.
Exactly. So where are these rebels within these current religions today who are asking difficult questions? I mean, that day I was, every now and then, I sometimes, I have this question, guys, for you, maybe you can help me.
But let me just say one thing about what you talked about. I think you can sum it up in the following way. The problem, I think, is with institutional and hierarchical religion. This is the problem is when things become hierarchical and structures of control appear. And I think when religion is anarchical and when it is collective and like individual and collective at the same time, then it can be a good thing.
I agree with you.
I also not see a way to solve the Palestine issue without recognizing that it's a place that's important to many religions. That religious people like Muslims can come to Al-Aqsa to pray and Jews can go to their holy sites to pray.
And Christians too.
And Christians too, and everyone respects each other.
Buddhists as well, why not? Welcome.
Like everybody. I see it, Jerusalem become some kind of spiritual center, you know, for all the religions.
And also the Hebrew University for the religion of science and of academics.
All is good. So I think we're already starting to create a better future.
We just rolled into it.
I mean, one of the things that I kind of dreamt, and I shared it with a friend. And I said, imagine you and I, three of us, we go into a scientific experiment where they put us in a coma for 100 years. Okay? And we wake up and we land in the Middle East as it will exist 100 years from now. And that world, people will have forgotten flags, nationalities. You will ask a person what country, they say we don't have countries. It's like, what do you mean countries? This is something from the past. You want to go to Dubai, you fly to Dubai. If you want to go to Damascus, you fly to Damascus. And I said, how nice would it be for Alon to fly to Syria?
Or teleportation device.
Teleport to Syria and visit his ancestors' homes, places. Why should you be deprived the right to visit to places of your ancestors' origin history. And why couldn't I fly directly to Tel Aviv or Jerusalem and hang out with you guys and like visit and not, you know, that currently, even though I have an American passport, I cannot fly to Israel directly because I was born in the West Bank under a Palestinian Authority. Therefore, I could never be trusted, even though
because you were born there, you
Yes.
cannot come in. Because
Yes.
people who were not born there, they can come in. That's okay. You're not a threat. But
That's birth of
because you
right
were
to
born
birth.
there, you cannot come in. This is anyone who says that the occupation, that what is going on is fine. I'm sorry, guys. This is not fine. Not fine. Not fine.
Right.
Sorry, not fine.
Yes, yes.
Really
So,
Fuck.
so I'm still with that fantasy that we can exist in a world. Imagine if religious freedom existed
Yes.
and there's no dominance and no control,
Yes.
and we all trade, educate, buy, sell. What difference does it make if you are living in Dubai or living in Jerusalem or living in Damascus if you feel you're 100% safe and you're equal?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like I don't think most people, even religious people today, would not have a problem if they were told you could feel safe and your rights are protected
Yes.
and you're equal. It doesn't matter
That's
where you
what
are.
you say is the real lesson from the Holocaust. It's the real lesson from everything that all the horrible stuff since the Holocaust, and this is the lesson from what happens now in Palestine. Like,
we need justice. Justice is a critical component of true peace. And if we don't have justice, we don't have peace. This is what the world, I think, is waking up to more and more.
Yeah.
And this leads me to a question that I wanted to ask you. We were talking a little bit about the Native Americans, and I was thinking that I see a waking up of like the connection between the resistance movements of different indigenous peoples. And I wanted to say, what do you know about this? What do you think about this? Do you participate in this?
Yeah, actually, where we are in Lenape land in New York, and the ethnic people of this country were wiped out.
Yes.
And the short sight of colonial powers is missing the lessons that Native people can offer us. I read a lot of books about Native American culture. For example, the people of this area have an incredible, rich dream life. And they would, when we wake up, they meet in the town square and they will discuss what you dreamed last night.
Oh, wow.
Imagine how
so awesome.
It's amazing.
Imagine how nice would it be to live in that world.
Wow.
And that day I went to a Palestinian embroidery workshop in my local mosque here. I've never been to this local mosque till they invited me to learn about stitching. And this woman was talking about traditional Palestinian called tatriz, is an art of stitching that's been there since the Phoenicians.
Wow.
And each town has its own embroidery style that celebrates the birds, the insects, the animals of the area. So you dress would show grapes and maybe cypress trees, and it tells the story of your village and where you come from. And imagine that the richness of the land, which we claim to love very deeply, is preserved and shared.
Yes.
And there is something that's kind of missing. I mean, the alienation, the you are my enemy and I'm your enemy, we don't have to share anything, is robbing us both this richness of the land and this.
So let me make a wish for the future. I want all of this knowledge, all of this art, all of this culture that was created in Palestine to be preserved, to be presented, to be enjoyed, and to be a part of the life of everyone living here between the river and the sea, and also all over the world, that they can enjoy this culture. I want to enjoy this culture. You are telling me about these embroideries, and I want to see them. You know, I want to interact with the people who are making them. I want to learn about their history. This is what I want.
Thank you, and I want to learn more about your history and your culture too, because I'm going to tell you a good story too, because there's a lot of negativity about occupation, about the two societies. Meanwhile, I heard you guys say in your show that 90% of construction in Israel is done by Arabs.
Yep.
And I thank you for saying that. On the other hand, the Israeli society has a very good medical system.
Yes.
And my sister had a daughter, and her daughter was born with a defect in her heart. And at the age of 1, my sister was so desperate, and this was during the Second Intifada, during very difficult, violent times. And she heard of an organization in Tel Aviv with a special doctor. It's called Save a Child's Heart.
Oh, wow.
Who takes children from all around the world, including Palestinian children,
Wow.
to his hospital, and for free. He had an operation on my niece's heart.
Amazing.
And
Amazing.
he saved her. And she's alive. She's in her 20s. She's a beautiful young woman, healthy woman, thanks to an Israeli doctor. So this exchange is possible. It's not fiction. It's not.
And everyone benefits from it.
Everyone, it's a win-win-win-win-win situation. Come on, guys, it's win-win-win. Let's do it now. Let's do it now. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it with the nonsense. Stop it now. Stop the nonsense now. Let's do it now. Now, not one day later. Now.
Yeah.
But the only way we could stop it is when we start to hear and see each other.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I sent you a quote today from one of my Arab philosopher friends. I don't know if you read it or not. Did you read it? I don't know if
I didn't have a chance yet. Alec, did you read it?
Not yet, no.
I'm going to read it for you right now. It's what is it?
Okay, read us the quote, yes.
Let me check my, just bear with me 1 minute. Okay, here we go. Okay. This guy is named is Ibn Rushd. In his European name is Averroes. He's a philosopher from Spain.
Okay.
And he wrote, ignorance leads to fear. Fear leads to hate.
Yes.
And hate leads to violence.
Yes.
Isn't this our problem?
Yes.
Yes.
Like ignorance leads
When was this
fear.
written? What year was this
700 years ago.
Okay.
So, so another thing that's interesting, I listened to this Israeli rabbi in Jerusalem who has a spiritual program, and he is very interested in mysticism. And he interviews people to talk about Sufism and other spiritual practices.
I think I saw that one as well, that he brought this Sufi, like, say what you were going to describe. Maybe I saw it as well.
So he interviews this professor from Tel Aviv University, who is the world authority on my favorite mystic Muslim from Spain. His name is Ibn Arabi. And she wrote a book about the subject, and she wrote another book about Sufism. And I think the best book I've ever read about Sufism was written by an Israeli. In my history. I'm quite sure my Muslim friends may have a different books they refer to, but I found her so excellent.
Who's the writer?
I forgot her name. I'm going to look it up and I can send it to you after the podcast. Maybe
yes. We will write the name on the video.
And then she said that if you want to study a lot of chapters of Hebrew mysticism were written in Spain during the time of the Golden Age where Arabs and Jews lived in Spain peacefully. And during that time, a lot of excellent Jewish books were written in Arabic because Arabic was the lingua franca of its time. So it was like the Latin of its time. So if you want to write a scientific book that's significant, you write it in Arabic.
Yes.
So currently, if you want to study the Jewish religion and understand some specific philosophical eras in the original context, you have to know Arabic.
Yes.
And she also mentioned that in Damascus, there used to be a great teacher in the Mosque of Damascus. And his teacher would teach about religions of all types. And people would go to him and ask him a philosophical question or religious question. And he would say, do you want it to be the Jewish interpretation or the Muslim interpretation? So the same teacher knew both cultures.
But was he Muslim or Jewish?
I forgot what he was, but he would like...
Maybe he was related to my grandmother.
I know that like the Rambam, the most important Jewish philosopher, I heard that he was so knowledgeable that like Muslims came to him to take advice about Islam because he knew Islam so well, and he understood its inner logic. So he said, if I would be Muslim, I would do this. You know,
we might be talking about the same person.
Interesting.
In our but I mean, if we want to be more realistic about the dream of our two cultures coming together to a resolution, it would require a lot of forgiveness. This is what I'm saying. I think the Messiah is not someone else. The Messiah is every one of us. You have to be that kind of a person who is willing to accept what you've done wrong. You have to be willing to forgive others for what they've done wrong. You have to be willing to do reconciliation, and you have to be willing to be just and fair. Everybody. I mean, you and me and everyone else have to participate in this extreme acts of generous humanism and do what it takes to correct the past and to heal from the trauma. And this trauma is multi-generational trauma that will take a lot of confrontation. It would require truth, justice, and faith. And currently, we, unfortunately, and this is, I feel like sometimes that the lessons of the Holocaust were not learned.
No, they were not. Not by the Zionists. Not by the Zionists.
And the trauma of it is still alive today. And trauma is generating counter-trauma.
Yes, it's a circle.
So it requires that kind of spiritual, personal, cultural honesty to say, I don't want to be in an advantage position. I don't want to be the oppressor anymore. I don't want to be living in fear anymore. I don't want to be looking behind my back anymore. And I'm willing to do the work to change that narrative that I am generating and the narrative they're generating to me. And unfortunately, I have not heard enough in this new age movement. Our spiritual teachers are all in hiding. You notice that, you guys? Nobody is talking about this.
There are a few.
Yeah, but it's very, like this, it's a subject that me and Alon are talking a lot about. We both been in New Age circles, hippie circles in Israel, and we're both like open to spirituality in our way. Like we're both also very mind, like we have both.
We try to cultivate both sides, the rational side and the mystical side.
And silence of the spiritual community here and in the world at large is so disappointing that it makes you feel like maybe all these spiritual truths are fake.
It's a lot of it is bullshit. This proves to me that a lot of it
But I think we do need the connection of the morality and spirituality of not just making it like a, capitalistic, individualistic thing that how do you, create your own reality and then make a lot of money.
But ignore reality, not just create your own reality. This just means ignoring your reality.
Yeah, ignore suffering of others, ignoring the fact that we are interconnected and it's not just about me and how I make my own career. Like all this stuff are being, pushed out. And
I agree with you. I feel like the New Age movement has been capitalized in America to become a narcissistic movement. All about me. How do I feel about myself? Do I feel pretty? Do I feel flexible? Do I feel wealthy? And the collective project is being ignored. And I think we are deeply relational beings. And my community and my social circle is as important as myself. I can't be an isolated self. So Western spiritual traditions have focused too much on you, just you, your meditation, whatever, and it became an ego cult. And it wants to make things simple and easy. The paradox and the complexity are removed. So if you want to talk about Israel-Palestine, the whole situation is
don't talk about this. This is unpleasant.
It's unpleasant. It's loaded paradox, and also there is a lot of Western guilt about anti-Semitism. I hate to say that. I mean, I want to be the paranoid character.
You're right, I think.
I think the Germans are still feeling the guilt they've done to the Jews, and to forgive themselves from their genocide. They're going to tell you guys can have your own genocide, we're even.
Yeah.
So there is a sense of like, yes, there is a sense that the West, the Christian world.
I just want to say,
yeah,
one thing that I find in common with Palestinians is always the willingness to have a dark sense of humor. And I think that the Jews and the Palestinians share this, because the Jews have been through the Holocaust and oppression all over the world, and
yes,
the Palestinians have experienced oppression, so you develop a dark sense of humor. And maybe one way to solve this separation and this estrangement is through our dark sense of humor. Let's just laugh about it together.
I think
Maybe
so.
we could do a comedy show with one Palestinian, one Jewish comedians, and they talk.
Yeah.
That could be also another tool of thing, because people are so afraid to talk about it directly. So I think the Western fear of sounding, if you criticize, the thought of criticizing Israel in New York is already considered if you just think about it.
Yeah.
You maybe something is wrong with you. Maybe you really hate the Jews. Therefore, you should not criticize Israel. And I find that so loaded. And I can even joke about it with my.
No, joke about it. Puncture their bubble.
Some comedians are joking about. But another thing that I experience at these rallies is I'm hanging out with a bunch of Palestinians and pro-Palestine people criticizing a genocide, and we're trying to stop it, criticizing the U.S. government, and saying that, and then drives by us a lot of angry Jewish Americans, and they open their windows and they call us nasty names.
Yes.
They give us the finger, and they are so full of rage. I'm like,
yes.
If someone is could be angry right now, it should be me. I'm like, my society, I've gotten the short end of the stick. My society has been under continuous erasure for 80 years, and I have every right to be full of rage. I'm like, why are you angry? I'm like, I don't understand why they're angry. I'm like, can you please ask them why they're so angry?
I think we can try to answer this. If you really want to, we know this society from the inside. Maybe we can try to explain it. I don't know.
I just thought now that there is the situation between the Israelis and the Palestinians. We know it's not equal, that there is an occupation, and I feel like, but there are weird, like there is anger that Palestinians have towards Israelis, and there is the anger that Israelis feel, and it's a different kind of anger.
Completely different kind of anger.
And the anger that's of the oppressor is this.
It comes from victim mentality.
And it's self-hate of being the oppressor. Like the oppressor doesn't love himself, I think, and he doesn't want to look in the mirror, because it's like you caught up in this cycle, right? Like you start to hate your victim because your victim reminds you that you're horrible, and it makes you even more angry. So you want to push them even more, and it's like
you want to punish them for existing.
Yeah, and
yeah, I find that it's sometimes it reminds me of domestic abuse.
Yeah,
like a parent who beats the child and is mad at the child for beating them. Like, you're making me do this.
Yes.
Like, you're making me do this. Without
you make me this monster that I feel that I am. And
but I also want to say that much of it, and maybe this is even deeper, is like them actually being a victim. Okay, so we need to understand that this is the way that the Jewish people is coping with the Holocaust and the persecution. Okay, this cope. This is the worst kind of cope possible, but also the original Holocaust was cope of the German people for what they have been through. It's always cope, and we need to stop coping and start acknowledging reality and dealing with our problem, not coping with our problems, but dealing with our problems really and honestly. So this is the cure, if anything. But the problem is that so many Zionists are so caught up in their own story of victimhood, of being persecuted by the entire world. And also now they think of the Palestinians as Nazis. This is the most prominent position in Israeli society, that the Palestinians are just a reincarnation of the Nazis, okay? This is something that we need to understand. They have their warped perspective of reality created by the cult, the super powerful cult of Zionism, being supported by billions and billions and billions of dollars every single year. This cult has brainwashed these people by a system of propaganda to believe that they are the victims of Nazis who are the Palestinians while they are committing genocide on the Palestinians. This is the inversion that this cult creates, and we need to deal with it.
Yes.
I think it's a very tough one to deal with, but at the same time, I think you really identified the problem.
Yeah.
But it's very hard for us to go to a person who is so afraid and so terrified, and you tell them what you're afraid of doesn't really exist.
Yeah, it doesn't exist.
You made it up in your head.
Yeah.
But they will tell you, but they put babies in ovens.
They didn't make everything up, okay? Anti-Semitism exists. Anti-Semitism exists, and it is a real problem, but this is not the solution to this problem. This is not the way to deal with the problem.
There is, like, let's say, I think there is complexity here in the Zionist story, because I see that there is a Palestinian hatred towards Israelis. I understand why it exists. I understand it's a result of a settler colonial project that always makes the native hate the settlers, like, and I don't expect them not. And I see that
this is justified rage.
Yeah, and also if it's not justified, I don't justify what Hamas did on 7th of October.
No, but the rage is justified.
Yeah, the rage is that, but I see, even if I see that there is illegitimate violence coming from the Palestinian side, I see it in a way that's connected to reality, and I understand why it's happening. I don't tell myself a story that is completely have nothing to do with it, and then I cannot solve the problem. Like, okay, and the problem is the occupation. The problem is the settler colonial regime that all its purpose is to annihilate this group of people, and this group of people didn't have anything to do against it except from either accepting it or resisting it. They don't have other choice. Like,
yeah, that's really well said. I mean, sometimes I want to ask my Zionist friends, please tell me how I should react to what's happening in Gaza. Please tell me what's acceptable. I can't.
Don't ask them, because they might tell you.
No, I'm serious. I mean, I'm just like, so I should just say it's okay. Continue your genocide. I support you. I applaud your efforts.
Did you ever ask them, actually?
I mean, it's a very tough question. I mean, it's a
but
very
ask them.
Because they're very angry.
Confront them with this.
Like, they're angry at college students.
Yes, I know.
For protesting genocide, but they're not angry at the genocide itself. As a matter of fact, a Jewish friend of mine did not like me using the word genocide, because it's not fitting for the Israelis to be committing genocide, because you guys are just doing self-defense.
Yeah.
This is the circular logic of Zionism.
Yes.
Jews would never do such a thing. Therefore, it never happened. Therefore,
you guys have the most moral army in the world. You have the most moral army in the world.
Exactly.
Like, of course. I mean, how could that be happening? So, but how do you break such a nightmare? You almost, and I find that, like, it's almost, there is a safety in believing that story for them.
Yes, it's a self-sustaining kind of bubble.
Yeah, so I mean, for us to have the dream, I was talking to you about the future with no passports, with no hate, wherever, we have to deal with the reality of now.
Yes.
And I think there is also something about not seeing, because if you want to see what's happening in Gaza, you can go Google it right now and find everything.
Yes.
But they have the same phone that you have, and they see nothing.
Yes.
Because I think the shades of ideology, like if you wear pink color glasses, you see the word pink. So they're wearing these glasses that makes them see the world the way they've seen it. And taking off the glasses to see reality as it is requires disarming.
Yeah. It's the illusion of this cult cannot sustain itself if you don't block out a huge chunk of reality. So they do it because let me just say this other part of the equation. Let's take my father, for example, okay?
Mhm.
So he is a lawyer, well-respected lawyer, okay? And he makes good money doing it, okay? And he built himself up from the ground up. He was very poor when he was young.
Wow.
But he learned and he developed himself and he created some. And now I have the freedom to do what I'm doing, to do all the political activism that I'm doing, because no one will pay me for it. I have the freedom because I have my family's support, okay?
Nice.
If he dares say anything, even can be slightly interpreted against the genocide, all of this could potentially crumble within days. Okay? It could.
Wow.
In this society, in this fascist society, it could.
Mm.
Therefore, my father cannot allow himself to even think about the possibility that his son is right in the analysis of the situation, and he knows that I am smart, and he knows that I am honest, and he knows that I never lie, and he knows that I go deeply into every subject, and he still has to deny what I am saying and belittle what I am saying because he cannot dare to think about it, because that would be a danger of losing everything.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's by the way, that was brilliant. What you shared with us is so brilliant and so truthful.
This is the way it operates, and I feel it firsthand for so many years, you know?
Yeah.
Back to, I mean, I was telling Alec before the conversation that three of us can free ourselves from the conditioning.
Yeah.
Because we were asking what makes us not hate each other?
Yeah.
What makes us not see each other as enemies?
It's also material conditions.
Yeah.
I think so. I feel like we are, Alec was saying, I'm a little bit privileged. I am not poor. I don't need to believe in a system to protect myself and to guarantee a salary or whatever.
Yeah.
So I think being privileged, being emotionally safe, and being free allows us to dare to ask these uncomfortable questions and to venture into troubled spaces in seeking an answer.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if we want more people to join us in this conversation, we may have to think about how you disarm the person from having to hold tight, because
we need to change the system as well. The system is keeping
all of
those
people
hostages in some way or other. So we need to dismantle the system. This must be done in order to solve this problem deeply, you know, from the root.
Yeah. Maybe the last thing is also what might help. I mean, as I said, when I was a teacher, if a student comes with a half-ass project, I used to teach architecture and design. And I would say, really, you had like 3 weeks to do this homework. This is your final project. This is going to be
we've all been there.
Pass or fail. Can you please tell me, what were you thinking? How does this work itself out? How do you think I'm going to give you a grade? Like, you didn't do 1/10 of the amount of work.
I'm being reprimanded by my own teacher now.
Yes. So, and the same thing with the Zionist project.
It's a failed project. It gets a big fat F from us.
No, but think about it. I mean, Jewish people from around the world were supposed to go to Palestine, and you guys were not supposed to face resistance, but unfortunately, there is resistance. And these Palestinians refuse to go away.
Somehow, these crazy Palestinians don't want to be displaced from some.
Who would have thought? Who would have thought?
Exactly. Okay, we overlook that, and it's a mistake.
Whoops.
Say we're gonna. Okay, oops, it's a mistake. Now we tried it for 50 years, it's not getting better. We tried it for 70 years, it's not getting better. We're trying it for 76 years, and now we face a hell of a situation where. What?
I said to the Zionists, please release it. Please, just let go.
But let's think about it. Is the situation sustainable?
Yeah.
I mean, you guys are a country of a small number of people who are already tired from wars and living in fear and whatever.
And the society is corrupted. It's deeply corrupted. Israeli society is deeply corrupted at this point. This is a thing that not enough people are talking about, the deep moral and intellectual and emotional and psychological and spiritual bankruptcy of Israeli society.
Yeah, I mean, again, you can't tell them that because they think they're doing okay. So you have to ask them, please explain to me how this works 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now. What's the realistic
I'm
options?
starting to think to tell Zionists from friends and family, okay, I understand that you gave up your morality, that you don't care about the Palestinians, but how does this thing work for you?
Yes.
Because I understand I cannot have the moral discussion. It's breaking my heart that you became such an immoral people that you cannot say. But I get it. But let's talk about only the Israeli people interests. It's like, how is it going to work?
Exactly. But at the same time, I don't want to just in defense of the average Israeli.
Yeah.
And I don't think, because I mean, I have a lot of Jewish friends, even Israeli friends in New York, and they are so kind to animals and to the neighbors and to doing charities and doing good. So I don't think they forgot the entire right and wrong and morality.
Yeah, they don't go around and kill people. Usually daily life, they're okay.
But it does creep into everything, I must say.
It does creep into everything, but partly there is a blind spot. There is an intentional, I'm not going to look at this. I'm going to be tight about the situation because if I do, it'd be threatening.
Yes, that's true.
And so I'm worried. I don't want to be morally superior because I worry about that position. I think we're all semi-equal human beings, and some of us are stuck into dark tunnels and don't know how to come out.
Yes, this is exactly how we see the situation.
Yeah, so the question is, how do we help people who are stuck in dark tunnels?
So I always need to be the bad cop, and I'm trying to be the best bad cop that I can. We've been talking for a long time. So maybe I will give a suggestion for how we finish, because I have like 2 or 3 questions to you about the future, okay?
Yeah.
So and you can answer them in any order that you like, okay?
I also had something I wanted to ask you before.
Okay, so you ask this question, and then I will say my question, and then we will finish.
Because I think we're talking, and it's a big question. Maybe it's not. It's a question also too, because I thought we were talking about the fact that, like, what's about the Zionist mindset and how we try to get people to do this mental work. And I wanted to ask, what do you think the mental work that the person from the side of the oppressed have to do? Like for you as a Palestinian, because you also have a lot of mental work to do.
Oh, yes.
No, not to fall for blind hatred, and to still see the humanity even of your oppressors. I want to ask if it's something that, how is it like for you? And the fact that you can talk to us now, I guess for many Palestinians, even if they would hear we're not Zionist, it will be hard to sit and talk now to Israelis.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, by nature, I don't like to see things in black and white. So I knew that this is not going to be helpful. And I think the only way to stop the fire of what's happening in the region is to stop adding fuel to the fire. Yes. And if hate is the fuel to the fire that I accuse the Israeli society of doing, then if I bring hate from my end, I am not any better. So I personally can do this. I mean, as I said, like there's a lot of things in religion that are good. Like in Christianity, you say you can hate the sin, but not the sinner.
Not the sinner, yes.
And I think in many ways, the 18-year-old Israeli army soldier who's sent to Gaza, and probably my society would crucify me for this, is not seeing his crimes. He's being told and lied to that these are Nazis. Yes, and these are the people who put babies in ovens and whatever the story they told them.
And he believes it. He truly believes it because he really wants to believe it.
And actually, in Buddhism, they say you cannot commit a crime while you're still in consciousness.
Yes.
So you have to suspend your consciousness to say, I don't know, Alec is not really a person. He's kind of like whatever. He's an abstract guy on my Zoom session. But I mean, you kind of suspend your humanity to do this work.
Yes.
And therefore, we all have to get connected to our humanity. And we have, and actually, a lot of problem with Palestinian society, we're too ashamed to feel our pain. We live it masculine and chauvinistic, and we're too prideful to say it hurts.
Yeah.
And that day that this Palestinian professor that was listening was covering Gaza, and he cried for 10 minutes of his show. His tears were coming down his face.
Who was
And
this?
it was so, this Palestinian professor was describing what's happening in Gaza.
Do you remember his name?
Mazen from Birzeit University.
Maybe you will write to us the name and we will.
Oh, right, and we should meet him. He was crying in tears for the loss of life and for the destruction of children.
Yes.
I mean, I hate to remind people, but it's been 6 months since a single child.
Almost 7 months.
7 months since a child in Gaza went to school.
Yeah.
Do you imagine how devastating it is to these children to be loss of everything, including a future of learning how. I mean, they're doing some underground education, but I mean, so that we have to own our feelings of sadness, grief, shame, fear, whatever it is.
We need so much healing now. So much healing now.
Before we can go to forgiveness and coexistence. And I heard about what African country that did the reconciliation work. South Africa did some work, and even in Rwanda.
Yes.
People who had genocide before us had to heal from genocide.
Yes.
And I think we have to create the circles of healing for the Palestinian society and for the Israeli society, and maybe at one point for all of us together.
Yes.
And I think if that work does not happen, a political solution alone is not going to happen. That's my opinion.
Yes. And Elik and I were talking in the video we recorded yesterday after the protest that we went to. We went to a protest yesterday against the invasion of Rafah and against the genocide and for peace and reconciliation and justice. And we were talking about how the Zionists who are supporting this, what is their greatest loss? And we both think that their greatest loss is the loss of their soul, the loss of their morality, the loss of their connection to themselves and to reality, the loss of their mind, the loss of their sanity. And all of this is just different ways to say the same thing, that they are victims of an ideology, which is a virus, which is a cult. And they need to regain that part of their soul in order for us to have any chance of reconciliation here. And I think one of the biggest missions right now to solve the situation is to really think about how we can restore a part of a society's soul, how we can do it. And this is, it is imperative.
Like, I feel like the big amount of the repair that needs to be done in Gaza physically is the amount of the repair psychologically and soul level that we need to do to our society. Like,
yes, and now also the healing should be on the side of the Palestinians as well. Like they have lost a part of their soul because of what they like. It's different parts of the soul, but it's the same amount. It's the same amount.
Same amount. I agree with you. I agree.
Just the same. I mean, sides of the same horrifying situation that we all find ourselves.
But you see, the thing is with the lost part of the soul of the Zionist is something that they don't feel so much right now. Like, you can live here in Israel and go to do music, you know, record albums, say, I don't listen to the news.
Yes.
I don't want to hear about it. I have many friends that said, okay, from some point, I just don't listen to what's going on, and it's politics. I don't want to hear about it. I just do my thing, you know, like the ability to say, like, it's politics.
Yeah. But I feel like if you do that, like, I mean, in your society, it's so close to home. It's so hard to pretend it's not happening.
Yeah.
And it seems, same here, even in America, it's so hard to pretend it's not happening. And I think that the energy that takes to repress a feeling is so unhealing and so dangerous to the person who's doing it. Your friends who pretending they're having good time, good music, I don't believe it. I don't believe it for a minute.
Yes. This is what is called toxic positivity.
Yeah.
Well said. And I think they're having the same nightmare you and I are having. Yeah. But at least we're dealing with it. We're processing it.
Yes, they're repressing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like in this conversation, my blood pressure didn't go up, actually. It didn't. You guys didn't make me angry. I didn't feel
No, the opposite. I feel hopeful now. I feel more enriched and hopeful.
Yes.
I think we need to do more of this kind of healing conversations.
Exactly.
And we didn't argue about facts or past or present. It just...
We don't need to.
But I think this is an example of what could be. And I'm so glad we both shared this precious last hour and a half or two.
Yes, yes. So let me ask you one final question before we finish up this conversation. So maybe two parts. So one part is, can you give us like maybe one paragraph, how you imagine the future, like the most positive future that you can realistically imagine for the area between the river and the sea? And the second part of this question is what we have to do right now and what you are doing maybe right now to progress us to this future.
I mean, there's two aspects to what I'm doing right now, and they're kind of contradictory and complex. So I am fighting to dismantle Zionism. And some of my friends will be very unhappy that I'm doing this, but I think Zionism has just been a horrible mistake for the Jewish people. It's been a horrible mistake for the Palestinians, and it's an unfitting idea for the 21st century. So we
are
have
both doing the same.
Yeah.
So we have to point the finger on the illness and say, this is just not right. It does not serve you. It does not serve me. At the same time, we have to work on healing and say, what kind of world can we exist after Zionism? I think a multinational state could exist where people are equal and are treated fairly. I'm not sure after the Gaza, wherever we are ready to mingle as two societies together in the same space. We might have to have a transitional period with that as an intention. We say maybe 15 years from now, after we've done the hard work of reparation, healing, forgiveness,
and conversation,
then we can have an evolution of our religions and our institutions to be more responsive to the reality of the time. Then maybe we can have a new space where we're all equal, we're all living under the same roof and wherever. And it doesn't matter which ethnic majority has one more kid extra, whether it's the Jew. I mean,
so stupid to discounting.
Democratic struggle. What are you talking about?
I mean, it's the most racist thing and most trusting thing.
This is 19th century bullshit, guys.
And
people who call themselves liberals and progressive,
they talk about the demographic struggle.
They talk about like counting how much people give birth, like things that Nazis dealt with, basically.
Yeah, and in terms of land and space, not every Palestinian wants the right of return. Maybe some want, some don't. Not every Israeli in Brooklyn has to come back and live in a settlement in the West Bank.
Can we just agree that the goal is equal and just division of resources and of land and of material conditions? This is what we want.
I mean, I don't speak for all the Palestinians. I just speak for myself and my vision of the future. Yeah. And I think some Palestinians right now are just so mad and are so angry and are so disgusted. Some of them are screaming, go back to Europe. I don't want you here. And at the same time, both of you were born there. Like, why? How can I say you don't belong there?
There was a situation where someone not Palestinian, and I haven't heard it being said by many Palestinians, I must say, but there was someone who I think was Moroccan, I don't know, and he wrote to me, go back to where you came from. And I told him, okay, one of my grandmothers is from Damascus, one of my grandfathers is from Shiraz in Iran, one of my grandfathers is from Poland, and grandmother from Russia. Which part of me should go back where, please?
Yes. You should be able to visit all these places freely.
Yes,
But-
yes, I want freedom of movement for everyone, and we all want this, right?
Yeah.
No, and some people will think that all of three of us are utopians, but
Yeah.
the reality is so much darker than the most utopian thing we're presenting. So I think
Yeah. They
this is the
prefer
work.
to live. They prefer to live inside a dystopian reality, and they will
Than to strive towards a utopian future.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. Guys, this was a great conversation. I
Yes,
learned so
yes,
much
it was
talking to you.
amazing.
And
Thank you so much.
we continue this maybe some other time, but this is really, I
Yes,
think this
we
is
would
what
love
could
that.
happen.
We would love that.
I feel that every guest that we bring, like, we will want to talk again for
Yes,
sure.
yes,
Like,
yes.
I
That's
feel
a good
like
thing
that
for your
would go.
podcast.
This is an ongoing conversation between all of us.
Yeah, so we would love to have you again sometime, at some point.
I'm so appreciative of you guys.
Yes,
Enjoy
so
yourselves and have a good
maybe any final remarks from anyone before we finish up this episode?
I just want to say that talking to guys like you, Khader, is really like my best healing for my... Like, it's the thing that makes me feel the most good, I think, from all the things that happen.
And the most optimistic.
Or the most optimistic, yeah. And it's really...
Same for me. The same for me. I mean, your show and your existence and your politics give me hope for all of humanity, and I feel very safe being around you guys. Thank you.
I always say to Elik, do whatever gets you the appreciation of people you appreciate. And I think that this is a good sign that we are doing the right thing, you know?
Keep the good work, you guys. I'll see you
You
soon.
too, and thank you
Stay in
so
touch.
much.
Okay.
And,
Peace is possible. Bye.
Peace and justice.
Yes.
Bye. Thank you.